Is it visible?
Yes, sir.
Sir. So we'll start, okay? We will not wait for others because we have to finish our syllabus. So we have been discussing something about the permeability, right? So I have shown you very beautiful videos. Uh, so after discussion also I will show some more videos. So this permeability is a very important engineering property, okay? So because of this permeability only, soil will try to settles down and water expulsion will takes place. So permeability of a stratified soil deposit in the sense we know that soil will deposit in a layered form, okay, sometimes, okay. So in that case, how this if the flow is parallel, or I mean along the plane, suppose. So in that case, how we can determine the permeability? Okay, like you imagine your circuit theory. What is that? Where resistivity R1, R2, R3, R3. Okay, uh, in a series, current passing through in a series, or something is there. No, okay. If you have read in a similar way, stratified deposits consist of number of layers. Okay, having different permeability. So average permeability of the deposit as a whole parallel to the planes of stratification that normal to the planes of the stratification can be determined. So in that, if the water is flowing from left to right here, layer 1, layer 2, layer 3 and so on, and what happens, the head of the difference in head would be H here, okay, and if the thickness of the layer L1, H1, H2, H3, and when it is passes through up to L, okay, distance, suppose. So in that case, how we can determine the how we can take the average of these things, okay. Here from the continuity equation we can write that the discharge per unit width is equal to sum of the all discharge. That means whatever q we are talking would be equal to q1, q2, q3, q4, q5 and so on. Is it not? Discharge would be same. We can add it this discharge, okay. But head difference would be only H, okay. So it means wherever you put this piezometer to find the head, it will rise up to here only. Okay, how you find the head difference? Generally, just put a piezometer. Okay, then what happens? Water will try to rise up to that particular level. Okay, so likewise, now, but what is our Darcy's law says about the discharge? Okay, what is the Darcy's law say about the discharge? We know that what is the Darcy's law is all about. Okay, so velocity is directly proportional to hydraulic gradient. Okay, let k h1 maybe different permeability of different layers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so ki a is the using the Darcy's law. So we can write like this, right? Ki h is the this one and unit width. Can you write like this? Parallel to the planes, stratification can be overall permeability in the direction. Okay, from the Darcy's law, using the Darcy's law, permeability of KH1 is equal to 1 is equal to all layers. This one we can write like this, right? Is it clear? Darcy's law. Darcy's law is equal to velocity is directly proportional to hydraulic gradient. Okay, what is that hydraulic gradient? I by h. Okay, so in this way we can write this by using Darcy's law and we can take this average of this one. Anyway, I'll show you the video. Okay, next, if the flow is normal to that from top to bottom, in that case hydraulic difference would be h1, okay, h2 and h3 and all. So h can be written as, but the discharge is same. Q is equal to q1, q2, q3 and all equal same. Okay, again by using the using this particular Darcy's law, we can write in this way, and finally it would be h is equal to h1 plus h2 plus and all similarly, and finally you will get this one, kV. Here look at the difference. Okay, kV is equal to vertical permeability H1 plus H2 plus H3 and so on divided by H1 by, after this one. Okay, simplifying that, here it would be K1 H1 plus K2 H2 plus K3 by H1 plus H2 by H3. Okay, this thing what I will do is once we show you video, that would be very clear. Okay, that's the reason I'm planning to show you. So what we are seeing today now is permeability of a stratified soil when the water is passes through parallel to that one and perpendicular to the stratified soil. Okay. Yeah, this one you can see it. Is it visible? It clarifies all you would do. Is it visible? Audible also?
Yes, sir.
Please respond.
Yes, sir.
Audible?
Yes, sir.
See this video. This video shows very clearly permeability of stratified soil. Okay. How it would be measured?
A soil mass is composed of small solid particles, which we call the soil grains. A soil mass is composed of small solid particles, which we call the soil grains. These soil grains, when depositing in a soil mass, arranges themselves in a way that some amount of empty space is left between them. We call these spaces voids. And the property of the soil which permits the water or any liquid to flow through its voids is called permeability. Permeability is the ease with which water can flow through the soils. Permeability of the soil in its natural deposits is highly influenced by its natural structural factors, such as its non-homogeneity and stratification. In an inhomogeneous soil deposit, water faces different movement resistances when it moves in different directions, as the soil has different types of variations in different directions. Consequently, we observe different values of permeability in different directions. Sometimes soil deposits we observe in the field consist of number of different layers stacked one over the other, and each layer has different engineering properties and permeability. Such as soil deposits are called stratified soil deposits. For the measurement of amount of water percolating through these stratified soil deposits, we calculate the average value of coefficient of permeability. For calculations and analysis purpose, it is assumed that in the stratified soils, each individual layer is homogeneous and isotropic. That means each single layer has similar structure and physical properties in all the directions. The average coefficient of permeability of the whole soil deposit varies with the direction of the flow. So, we calculate the permeability of such deposit for flow of water in two directions. Horizontal flow, that is flow parallel to the bedding planes, and vertical flow, that is flow perpendicular to the bedding planes. Let's calculate coefficient of permeability for each one by one. Consider a soil deposit consists of these horizontal layers of thicknesses H1, H2, H3 and so on. Permeability of these layers Kn, K2, K3 up to Kn. As we have already assumed that each individual soil layer is homogeneous and isotropic, so permeability of each layer is same in both horizontal and vertical direction. When water flows through such soil in parallel or horizontal direction, let's say head loss, which is the energy loss of water, is observed as H or a distance of capital L. So it generates the hydraulic gradient I, which is H by L. We can see the head loss is same for all the layers, and also the length of flow is same, so the hydraulic gradient of total soil mass I will be similar to the hydraulic gradient of each layer. Hence, I equal to I1, I2, I3 and so on. When water flows through soil layers in horizontal direction, the water flows in all the layers at the same time. the discharge through each layer is Q1, Q2, and so on. From the continuity equation, we can write the total discharge through the soil mass is equal to the sum of discharge through each layer. Note this as equation number 1. From the Darcy's law, we can write discharge through the soil mass is equal to the permeability of the soil multiplied by the area through which the water is percolating multiplied by the hydraulic gradient which is causing the flow. Here, let's say total thickness of soil mass is capital H and its width is capital B. So area of flow is B into H. We also write the permeability of this whole soil mass in horizontal direction of flow as KH. So discharge can be written as this. Similarly, discharge through first layer can be written as this. Here, K1 is the permeability of the first layer which is of thickness H1. Discharge through second layer is this, and so on. Substitute all these values in equation number 1. By simplifying this, we can get the permeability value of the stratified soil deposit when the flow of water is in horizontal direction. Now, let us consider the same soil deposit, but this time water is flowing vertically downwards. In this kind of situations, the flow takes place in one layer after the another. We can observe whatever amount of water is coming out of one layer is going into the another layer. So discharge through each layer will be equal, and that will be equal to the discharge through the whole soil mass. So we can write Q equal to Q1, Q2, and so on. If we assume the area of flow is capital A, which is same for all the layers, then we can write by Darcy's law as this. Kv is the permeability of this whole soil mass in vertical direction of flow. It may be simplified to this. From here, we can write hydraulic gradient throughout any layer which is causing the flow within a layer as this. Note this as equation number 1. Head loss through each layer may be different, but total head loss will be equal to the sum of head loss through all the soil layers, which we write H equal to H1 plus H2 plus H3 and so on. Here H is the total head loss and H1, H2 are the head loss of different layers. We know that hydraulic gradient is equal to the head loss divided by the length of flow. So head loss can also be written as this. L is the length of flow, which in our case is the thickness of the layers as the water is flowing vertically downwards. So we can write total head loss as this. Now we can write values of hydraulic gradient from equation number 1. By simplifying this, we can get the permeability value of the stratified soil deposit when the water is flowing in the vertical direction. It has been observed that permeability of the soil strata in horizontal flow.
So which direction permeability would be more? Horizontal or vertical?
The horizontal.
Okay, very good.
Is always found greater than the vertical flow. That is, KH is always greater than KV.
So they will ask in the
Write down
exams, okay,
daily learnings or express your creative.
So it is very clear, very simple thing only. Okay, only here what we are doing is discharge. We are telling that Q equal Q1 plus Q2. Here H equal to H1 plus H2 and also on. Okay, like that we can derive it. It's very simple. So with that we have finished the permeability. We'll go to next very good topic. Okay, that is effective stress. Okay, that is very important topic. And this permeability, please go through it. There are some problems also given based on our constant head, falling head method. Okay, you read it. Maybe next your next. See, look at this is based on this vertical flow. Okay, these equations. Okay, one place this one. Okay, so solve all problems, and anyway, you people have whole thing copied from Google and you wrote your first assessment, right? You agree or not? You must be laughing behind. Okay. So I understood it. Okay. So next exam will not be same. Okay. Must be some filling the blanks or some conventional question I'll give. Okay. That's how I have decided. So because how can you get everyone 18, 19, 19, 19, 20 and 18? So you people are searching in the Google and writing it. But in that way, you cannot clear competitive exam. Suppose you want to write gate and allocation. So you are cheating yourself. But anyway, because you have to get good grades right for campus placement. But next exam may not be as easy. Just I have given trial to you. I know that it would be available in Google and all. For next exam, you may not find in Google. So something this thing where we'll discuss. This is it visible now?
Yes, sir.
Now, this particular topic is very, very important. Okay, till now, what you have studied is only permeability, that is also engineering properties. Okay, permeability, we have seen the falling head method, constant head method, pumping out, pumping in also there. Okay, you can go through it. And the stratified soil, horizontal and vertical, what happens with average coefficient of permeability when water passes through it. Okay, so and previously we have seen the classification of the soils. Okay, everything we have seen classification that already you might have studied for your CT1. So I hope it would be clear. Okay, now you also start preparing from the permeability and all. Okay, so this particular topic, effective stress also very, very important. Okay, so what is mean by this effective stress is all about. Okay, suppose if I ask you just H depth below, uh, what is the total stress if I keep my hand or palm below the soil at a depth H or 1 meter, something like that? How generally you calculate? I have explained previously. If the unit weight of the soil is given, or if total load or weight of that particular soil, how will you find out? If you know the unit weight of the soil, is it not? Unit weight of the soil, and if you know the area, or you say where it exactly you want to find out the total stress, then you can get the complete weight or stress. Okay, so here what we'll do is uh, look at this effective stress principle. Definition of the effective stress, here what it says is, yeah, look at here. Okay, so I'll explain here. So what we do is, this is a soil is maybe having saturated. Okay, so fully saturated it is. Okay, soil with mass. So what I'm doing is, I'm having a small prism, just I'm having small tube or prism here. Here I want to find out the stress, understand? Where P. Okay, here I want to find out the stress now. Okay, so here how we can find out the soil which is fully saturated? Let us consider the prism cross section of area A. So this is the area A cross section, we know that. Okay, how you can find out this particular the weight of P of the soil in the prism is given? How we can find out the weight there? Here, once we know this, area into height, is it not, multiplied by the unit weight? Is it clear? Cross section area we know. Okay, height we know. That would be multiplied by the unit weight of the saturated soil, if you know. Then we can find out the weight of the particular soil in that prism, right? Is it not? Is it clear? Where gamma sat is the saturated weight of the soil and H is the height of this prism. Now, if I want to find the total stress on the base of the prism, suppose I am keeping my hand there, total stress. How we can find out? There, take this A here. Whatever P is the weight we are talking, right? It will give the stress per unit area. Is it not? So P by A can be written as gamma into H. That means what I'm trying to tell you is, total stress at a depth of H would be unit weight of the soil. It can be saturated, it can be dry, it can be partially saturated, bulk or so on. It can be anything. Would be equal to this particular height multiplied by the gamma of the soil. The gamma can be sat or dry, whatever may be. Is it clear? That is called the total stress on the base of the prism or at a particular depth below the soil. Once you know the height, okay, and once you know this gamma of a soil, particular gamma of the particular soil, okay, where exactly we want, we can find out the total stress. Hope it is clear. Okay, what I'm trying to do is here prism I have taken it. Okay, I want to find out the stress here. Okay, stress means first what you do is first you find out the weight P of a soil there. Okay, in the prism. Weight we can get it, how we can get the weight of the particular prism? Once you know the area and the volume, we can say, okay, area and the height, cross section area and height. Okay, once you get cross section and the area, then you multiply the particular material unit weight. It can be soil, anything. So here gamma saturation we have to multiply. Then what will give the particular there it will give the complete weight of the soil there. Okay. Then what we do is, suppose I want to find the total stress there. Then what we will do is take the area here and you will get the stress, total stress. That means when you keep your hand there, how much stress you feel it. That how much stress you will feel, it would be multiplied by the height into unit weight of the soil. Okay. So you know that what is unit, because it would be very easy for us to talk in terms of the unit weight, or we can density also we can talk, but generally we know the relation about this density is okay. Unit weight is equal to rho g. Okay, like that we can do it. Generally, gamma saturation would be okay. Uh, 20 will take 20 kilometer per meter cube. It would be generally okay when you calculate it. Okay, so gamma saturation would be generally 20 will generally take, because gamma is, once you do these calculations, okay, gamma sat and all. So here whatever is given would be generally 20 kilometer per meter cube. Okay, now what I will do is that is total stress. Okay, whatever I feel it. Now what I will do is I will put one piezometer here and see that where the water is rises. So it rises up to top because it is fully soil, fully saturated. When you put the piezometer, it will come up here. Okay, added h distance. Okay, or depth h. Okay, now the definition, that is total stress. This particular stress is called the pore water pressure, is due to the pore water pressure. This is called the neutral pressure. Okay, the pore water pressure, also known as neutral pressure or neutral stress, because it cannot resist any shear. That's why it is called the neutral stress. Okay, now coming to the definition of the effective stress. Effective stress is defined as equal to total stress minus this U, that is the pore pressure. When you deduct pore pressure from the total stress, then it is known as the effective stress. It is sometimes referred with the dash or sometimes the bar. Here bar is equal to total stress minus pore pressure. That means suppose I want to find out the effective stress at a depth of H. If the soil is saturated, in that case what we have to do, suppose if I want to find out the effective stress at a depth H, okay, what I have to do is first I have to see that whether soil is saturated or okay dry. So in that case, if it is saturated, what we have to first calculate total stress. Total stress is gamma saturation multiplied by H depth. Then what we have to find is pore water pressure. We have to find out, just insert a tube there where it will rises. We have to calculate, that is pore water pressure. Total stress minus pore water pressure will give the effective stress. So this particular term is very important. Okay. So what happens? The effective stress can be written as gamma saturation H minus gamma W at unit weight of the water. Only water only here, right? Into H. So can be written as gamma saturation and gamma W, okay, into H. When you take it out H, this can be equal to the gamma dash H. The submerged unit weight, you got it right. So what we got it now from what did you understand from now? If the soil is saturated, suppose if I want to, no need to do all calculation, okay. If listen very carefully, if the soil is saturated, fully saturated, suppose if I want to find out effective stress at a particular depth can be H. How we can find out? Once we know the submerged unit weight into H, forget about gamma sat and all these things now. It is equal to, if it is soil is fully saturated, gamma submerged unit weight, if we can calculate, which is equal to gamma saturation minus gamma W, okay, multiplied by H will give the effective stress, not total stress, okay, effective stress. Hope you understood, okay. Again, I'm explaining you. If it is dry, suppose, then gamma saturation in the dry there is no water, so mu is equal to 0. In that case, total stress is equal to effective stress because there is no water at all. But if at all water is there, that particular water we have to deduct from the total stress. Then you will get the effective stress. Understand? So suppose if I ask you what is that effective stress at a depth of H, if the soil is saturated, what we have to tell is, you can do this one, gamma total minus gamma W, or directly you can gamma dash H also can be done. Understand? So here the importance of these effective stress is given, okay. It controls the properties of a soil, compression, shear strength. So this controls, because water controls everything, right? We know that in the soil, water controls everything. If the water table is coming up, what happens? Effective stress reduces. Is it not? Effective stress means in the sense, it is the in general term, generally, this is the definition for the effective stress: total stress minus water unit weight, total stress minus pore pressure. But actual what it is exactly the effective stress is, because it is the stress between the two granular particles, okay. It will, both the granular particles will be contacted with their surfaces, okay, and this with that some stress will be developed. If that is there for dense soil, it will be more, right? For loose, it will be less. So if the water table added to that, what happens? That would be disturbed, right? Their effective stress between two particles would be disturbed, because water table coming up, or when you saturated it, what happens? The effective stress decreases. It is a intergranular stress, we can say again, okay, intergranular particles. So both the particles would be having contact with each other, okay, contact with each other, okay. In that case, this water table comes now, it disturbs this one. Then what happens? Total effective stress reduces with this water. And then what happens again? What happens if the effective stress increases? Soil becomes soft. When the soil becomes soft, shear strength also less. Is it not? So all the properties changes. So this particular water is very big problem for us, that you should remember, okay. Especially clay soil, because all we have seen the all undrained or all strength of this soil because of this cohesion only, okay. Is it not? So all whatever you could see, clay type of soil depends on the consistency only, okay. So soft consistency, less strength; medium consistency, little more; hard consistency, stiff soil will have more strength. So especially clay soil, everything depends on the water only. But in the case of this granular or sandy soil, it depends on the relative density. Okay, so denseness, loose, medium, and the high dense soil. But in the case of clay soil, low consistency or soft soil, medium soil, stiff clay, and so this water really plays very big role in the soil mechanics, okay. So there should not be any water actually. If water comes, again the problem comes for us, okay. Even for the construction of a foundation in the seashore, okay, offshore structures, or across the rivers, okay. When you work in the dam, seepage takes place, this water reduces our shear strength and all.
So always the construction in the dry places would be always better, okay, not waterlogged places, because effective stress is decreasing, is it not? Total stress, if is the sigma or is the total stress, here we are deducting pore pressure, that will give the effective stress, right? So that means effective stress is decreasing, that is not good for us. So effective stress should be more, is it not? So effective stress should be more. So that's the reason compression and shear strength all are the function of this particular effective stress. Okay, so now uh, so nature of the effective stress, these things anyway, that's why I have explained here. Okay, now coming to this one more diagram now. Okay, now is it visible now? Now let us see. Hope you are following, right? Please respond.
Yes, sir.
So what is effective stress? Effective stress should be more. Okay, it is a total stress minus pore water pressure. Pore water pressure. How to find out pore water pressure? Just insert a tube. You will get piezometer. You will get pore water pressure. Okay. Total stress. How we will find out? Whatever soil it is there, gamma saturation multiply the H. Now what we will do is here the ground. Just a practical example. This particular effect of water table fluctuation on the effective stress, what exactly happens if the water table increases decreases. So we'll try to work out here itself. Okay, we'll take a one ground. Okay, and we'll calculate without water table and we calculate with water table, then we'll find out how the effective stress is uh, changes. Okay, that's what it is given. So it is very simple topic. So that's why in the beginning I am taking a lot of time to explain. So whole thing is depend on this one only. Once you calculate total stress multiply deducted by the pore pressure water pressure, it will get the effective stress sigma bar. Okay, total stress minus pore pressure, total stress minus pore pressure. Okay, so what we will do is here is the ground. Okay, and the ground surface soil is wet. Here is the water table, right? Here is the water table. Water table is there at a depth of where H1 you can say. Okay, and this whole soil is saturated, understand? And what I will do is I want to find out the effective stress at XX here. Is it visible? X this here. That means this one is wet soil and this one is fully saturated. H1, H2. Total depth is H. Okay. Here I want to find out the effective stress. I want. Hope it is clear. Forget about the back. Okay. Here XX you focus on the XX. We know the where the water table is. Okay. We know that depth of the water table. We know that saturated soil is there above that. Okay. And we know that H2. Now, if I ask you how we can find out the effective stress here, how we can find out effective stress, first what we have to do is first we have to find out the total stress. Understand? Here, look at here. This is what we have explained you. Okay, look at this one. What is the total stress here? Gamma into H1. Gamma is the bulk there, just a wet soil. Okay. Here, gamma is the here this is the gamma, whatever unit weight of the soil, it is given as gamma. That means wet soil, not fully saturated, not fully dry. That means bulk unit weight, gamma into H1 plus gamma sat into H2, right? Hope you got it. Gamma into H1 plus gamma saturated into H2. What is that sigma? That is the total stress when you keep your hand there, whatever you feel it. Now, how to find out the effective stress now? You calculate the pore water pressure here. What is the where it will come pore water pressure? If you keep at the X, where it will rises up to H2 only. So pore water pressure is gamma W, unit weight of the water, multiplied by the H2. Now, what is the definition of our effective stress? Total stress minus pore water pressure. That means if you deduct from this one, then final what you will get it? this one, okay, then this one. Finally, this is your effective stress. Without doing that calculation, we can get it, right? Gamma into H1 plus, already we know that if the soil is in submerged state, gamma dash submerged multiplied to H2. That is, if gamma dash is equal to gamma saturation minus gamma W. Is it clear? Please respond.
Sir,
Is it clear?
excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, in pore pressure, why we are not taking H1?
H1 why we are not taking, because it will not rise here water table when, because it is not fully saturated. It's just a wet soil. Wet soil, it will not come if you put a piezometer there. There is no pore water pressure there. It is just a wet soil, bulk. Is it not? So we have three saturation, right? One is fully saturated, one is bulk united, one is dry. Hope it is clear. If you get any doubts, then what? Because here, if you put a tube, the water will rises up to here only, not up to here, ground surface. Understand? So that's
Yes,
that's the reason we are taking that one. Okay, there is a difference between gamma bulk and the gamma saturation. Okay, so what did you learn today? Effective stress. How we can find out effective stress? Total stress minus pore water pressure. Pore water pressure. If you get any doubt, what you do is it will rises to the where the water table is are fully saturated if the soil is. Okay. Now what I will do is next this one. Now what I will do is what it is given. Uh, Now if the water table is rises to the ground, next A it is given. Okay, if the water table rises to the ground, the whole soil is saturated, right? Then how we can find out the effective stress? Gamma dash multiplied by H, which is equal to H1 plus H2. Is it not? If this particular water table is rise to the ground level here, that can be get it. How we can get it? Once you know this H multiplied with gamma submerged. Gamma submerged is gamma sat minus gamma W. That's what we are doing here. Understand? If the water table is below, I mean going down, then what happens? Only gamma multiplied by the H. If the water table is below XX, hope it is clear. Very, very simple thing only. Okay, once you read it, you understand these things. Okay. So likewise, we can find out this effective stress. That means how this water table will affect. That means what you have to see that water table will reduce the effective stress, not increase the effective stress. Okay. So what? Now one more example I'll give you here. What I will do is now what we'll do is effective stress in a soil mass under hydrostatic conditions. So like we have water here, soil 1 and the soil 2. Okay, here water, that means above the soil some water is there, like we have ocean, like we have river, a pond or lake or something like that. Now my question is, will that particular water above the soil affects the effective stress? If I want to find out the effective stress at a particular depth of H, will it affect?
Yes, sir, it will affect.
Any other questions? Any other answers? Suppose what we have seen is here water table at the ground level only. Above the ground level, some water is there. Suppose some water, like we have pond or lake or something like that. Okay, and below that we have soil. Below that, I want to find out somewhere depth at a H. Okay, will that water table above the particular soil or will affect the effective stress? Based on the definition of our effective stress. Think.
Sir, no, sir, it won't, sir. Water has no shear strength, so it won't.
Not shear strength, forget about shear strength. Why it won't affect according to effective stress definition? Because we are detecting it, right? Pore pressure would rises up to that level. And what is the definition of effective stress? Total stress minus pore water pressure. Understand? Now, that's what it is here. Okay. Now look at here. Now I will. This will explain to you. Okay. By definition, we'll go it. Now water table
Sir,
above the.
it will not change, sir.
Yeah. Water table above the soil. AA. Okay. When the water table is above the soil, let us consider a criteria if the water table is above the soil. Okay. AA water table is there. Now my job is to find out the total stress. Okay. Water table above the soil AA. It's section AA. Here AA. What is the total stress here when you keep your hand? This H1 multiplied by the unit weight of water. That is total stress. Understand? What is the pore water pressure here? Same thing. Gamma W into H, gamma W into H. Here total stress and the pore pressure is same. So what is effective stress here? AA 0. Is it not? Hope it is clear. Total stress is nothing but the multiplied the height multiplied. If the soil is there, we have to multiply with the soil unit weight. If the soil is not there, what is there in that? Water is there, gamma W. H into gamma W, pore pressure also H into gamma W. What is the effective stress definition? Total stress minus gamma unit pore water pressure. Total stress is the same and this is also same. It becomes 0. Now let us take a section BB. Okay, let us take section BB. What is total stress? How we can find out total stress? Gamma W into H plus gamma saturation and gamma soil 1 multiplied by the H1. Understand? Gamma W into H, if you keep your hand there, plus whatever you feel total, gamma saturation 1 is given, multiplied by the H1, that particularly. Now, if I ask you what is the pore water pressure there, when you insert a tube, again it will rise up the water table, that is gamma W multiplied by H plus H1. Then what is the total effective stress? Total stress minus pore water pressure U. It means gamma submerged, gamma dash submerged into H1. Understand? Where gamma dash H1 is a submerged unit weight. So is it changing anything here with that water table? Nothing is changing, right? Next, suppose I want to find out the CC here, bottom. How we can find out at the bottom? Gamma W into H plus gamma saturation soil 1 multiplied by H1 plus gamma saturated to soil H2 can be written as, then pore water pressure, it rises up to top, gamma W H1 plus H2 plus H, then can be written like this finally. Understand? If the water table is at the surface, AA, suppose here water table is there. If you do it, then what will happen? Everything is same. It will come. Okay. So if you compare this one, it would be same. So water table above the soil will not play any role in the effective stress. This is the proof. You can just check it. Then what you do is water table at the middle of that one, you keep it somewhere. Then again find out. So this is what it is given. Okay. You can play with it. So this is all about this effective stress. Please read it today. Take one standard Aurora book and read this. Understand this effective stress. What is all about? Okay. Maybe what is the time now? At what time you have next class is? 10:30, right? Is it visible?
This is how fast YouTube is with Brit.
Yes, sir.
10:30, right? You have class, right? Is it not?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
5-10 minutes you see the video because we have so much syllabus to finish it up. Okay, so watch this video now. Okay, maybe they explain very well. Okay, so again clarifies your doubts. Okay.
Notice how there's no pre-roll ads? And here's how you can see how much time you...
A soil mass is the huge collection of soil particles we call soil grains. These soil grains have mass, so they exert force as weight downwards on the other particles. Weight is a force and we represent it in Newton or kilonewton. These soil grains, due to their own weight, gets pushed by all the surrounding particles and exert force on each other, which is represented by a quantity we call stress. Stress is defined as the force divided by the area over which it applies. It expresses the internal forces that particles of a material exert on each other. The stress is a vector quantity, just like the force. So we can decompose it into normal stress and shear stress. The stress developed on a surface because of the force component perpendicular to its area is called normal stress. N is the force component normal to the surface of area A. And the stress developed in the surface because of the force component tangential to its area is called shear stress. When a soil mass is subjected to an external load, such as load due to overlying structure, the state of stress within the soil changes, and that may affect the stability of the soil mass, and deformations may occur to the surrounding soil. So, it is necessary to analyze the stresses within the soil mass. Total stress on an element in the soil is equal to the force on that element divided by the area of that element over which the force is acting. Force on that element is the weight of everything above that element, which includes soil own weight and weight of overlying structure if present. We can understand this stress as the pressure of overburden. This total stress in the soil is shared by the two components of the soil mass. Part of the stress is shared by the soil grains that are in contact with each other by their grain-to-grain force transfer, which is called effective stress. And part of the stress is shared by other component, water present in the voids of the soil structure. This is called pore water pressure. Let us consider a soil mass which is fully saturated. Imagine this soil experienced the force capital P at some point in soil because of its own weight. This force is resisted partly by the interparticle forces at the point of contact and partly by the force exerted by water available in pores that is pore water pressure force. Now take an imaginary plane XX at any level in the soil mass, which passes through all the points of contact between soil particles that lie in this plane. This plane looks wavy on the small scale, but for all practical purpose, on the mass scale, we can consider it perfectly plain. We will try to analyze the forces on this plane. The total normal stress on this plane can be given as total normal force acting on the plane divided by the area of the plane, let's say capital A. The interparticle forces are random in magnitude and direction throughout the soil mass. So on this plane, at every point of contact, we can resolve them into normal and tangential components. Let's say the normal component of the force acting on a particle is capital N. So sum of all these normal forces is summation of all N. The water filled in the voids of the soil also exerts pressure on the soil grains in all the directions as Pascal's law suggests. This exerted pressure by the pore water is called pore water pressure. This pressure exerted by water also supports the stress due to the weight of overlying material. This pore water pressure can be easily measured by inserting a standpipe or tube inside the soil at the location where we want to measure the pressure. Let's say the pore water pressure is small u at the plane. So the total force offered by pore water pressure force is U multiplied by the area of voids in which water is present in this plane. We say that area as AW. Let's say the sum of all pore water pressure forces is summation U. Now, by applying equation of equilibrium on the plane XX, we can write that total normal force acting on this plane is equal to the sum of all normal interparticle forces and pore water pressure force. Divide the equation by a whole cross-sectional area capital A of the plane. We can write pore water pressure force as this. If we notice the area of contact of soil particles, let's say AS, is very small, and almost all the area of this plane is covered by the area of voids, AW. So in our equation, these can be considered almost equal. And this value we have already noted is the total normal stress on the area. So we get this. In this equation, this quantity is called effective stress. It is generally denoted by sigma prime or sigma bar. We can say that effective stress is the pressure transmitted through particles' contact with each other. It must be noted that effective stress is equal to the total normal force transmitted at the points of contact divided by the total area of the plane, which includes the area of voids as well that are occupied by water. This effective stress is much smaller than the actual contact stress, which will be total normal force that is transmitted at the points of contact divided by actual contact area only. This quantity will be huge. So the effective stress has no physical meaning, and therefore it cannot be measured directly. But it is deducted from two physical and measurable quantities, total stress and pore water pressure. But still, effective stress is very important and useful for the soil engineers. It has been observed experimentally that it is the effective stress that determines the engineering behavior of the soil, like compression and shear strength, not the total stress. We know total stress at any point within the soil mass can be written as this. From this, we can write expression for effective stress. This relationship was proposed by Terzaghi in 1936. As both total stress and pore water pressure can actually be measured in the field, we can also calculate the effective stress. Let us consider a soil mass and try to find out the effective stress at some point below the ground at depth capital H. For simplicity, we assume that the water table is at the ground level and the soil is completely saturated. Let the saturated unit weight of the soil is gamma set. We know unit weight of soil is the weight of soil divided by its volume. Total stress at any point is equal to the weight of everything above that point, including soil, water, or overlying structure, if any, divided by the area over which this weight is acting. It can be imagined similar to the pressure, which is the force by area. Here, let's say area over which the weight is acting is capital A. So, weight of the soil above this point will be the unit weight of soil multiplied by the volume of the soil, which is the area multiplied by its height. It can be simplified to this. In our case, we have taken unit weight of soil as saturated unit. Now, the pore water pressure at this point in the soil is the pressure due to the weight of water column above it of height h. So pore water pressure at this point is also the weight of water column divided by the area. So pore water pressure can be written similar to the total normal stress as this. Here gamma W is the unit weight of water. We will find this pore water pressure similar if we insert a tube or a standpipe at this point in the soil and observe the rise of water, because water in the soil is at atmospheric pressure. At water level will be the piezometric level. Therefore, the effective stress at this point in the soil can be given as this. The increase in the effective stress causes the soil particles to pack more closely, which results in decrease in the void ratio because of decrease in the volume of voids, and that leads to a decrease in the compressibility and increase in the shear resistance of the soil. In the calculation of effective stress, we assume that soil is isotropic. That means the unit weight of the soil is constant throughout the soil layer. But in the actual field conditions, soil structure is non-homogeneous and not isotropic and contains various defects.
Hello, welcome to the postgraduate program in Art.
Okay, I'm stopping it, okay?